The sun hung low over the jungle-edge city of Zalrath, casting long golden shadows across the crystal towers and metallic streets. This was the frontier of Princess Ilara's kingdom, where the civilized world met the wild. The jungle beyond was alive, with creatures most humans could only imagine, in nightmares apex predators, with claws like steel, eyes like molten amber, and instincts sharper than the keenest blade. The city's elite rarely ventured here, and even fewer dared to approach the humans who were considered apprentices, fragile and unskilled. Princess Ilara strode through the bustling marketplace with her usual air of confidence. Her silver-blue robes shimmered against the morning light, and every head turned as she passed. Alien merchants bowed, and children hid behind crates of exotic fruits, whispering her name in awe. Ilara loved the attention. She had been trained to command it, and she thrived in it. Yet, today, she was not alone. Beside her walked Kale, a young human labeled an apprentice by the alien scholars. His clothes were simple, his boots scuffed, and his hands held tightly to a small satchel. To the court, Kyle was insignificant, an experiment in survival among the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Ilara tilted her head and gave him a sly smile. "So, apprentice," she said, her voice carrying through the marketplace. "Do you plan to survive today, or are you going to faint at the first roar of a predator?" Kale remained silent. His brown eyes scanned the crowded streets, observing the strange aliens and humans moving among them. His calmness irritated Ilara. She thrived on responses, on reactions, on seeing fear dance in the eyes of those she mocked. But Kale showed none. "You know," she continued, circling him like a predator herself, "most humans can't even handle the simplest tasks here. You can barely lift that satchel without looking like you might drop it." "No." Kale finally spoke, his voice quiet but steady. "I will carry it safely. That is all that matters." Ilara laughed, a musical, sharp sound. "Safe?" she scoffed. "Oh, I see. You're the careful type. Afraid of the jungle? Afraid of the beasts that roam outside the city walls?" A group of nearby alien merchants whispered among themselves, glancing nervously at Kale. They had heard stories humans were fragile, slow, and untested. Most never lasted a week in the frontier. Yet Kale walked steadily, like he belonged. "You really should be careful with your tone, Princess," Kale said, his voice steady. "Not everything out here is as harmless as it seems." Ilara's laughter echoed again, sharper this time. "Harmless? You're a human. Harmless is your middle name. Tell me, apprentice, do you even know what these creatures look like? Or are you too busy pretending to be brave?" As she mocked him, Kale's eyes flicked toward the jungle. At the far edge of the city, between the steel towers and the thick foliage, he noticed movement. Massive shapes glided through the underbrush, barely visible beneath the trees. Long tails swished through the grass, and enormous heads turned as if sensing his presence. Apex predators, the kind that could tear a human apart in moments, were watching him. Ilara followed his gaze. "What are you staring at, human? Are you seeing things now?" Kale shook his head slightly. "They are real. They are observing. But they are not here to attack me." The princess scoffed. "Ha! You think predators would hesitate for a human? Please, you're dreaming." But even as she mocked, a strange hush fell over the marketplace. The aliens around them felt at first a shift in the air, a sense that something powerful had arrived at the edge of their city. Birds scattered from rooftops. Small animals froze mid-step. Even the exotic plants seemed to shiver. Kyle took a slow step forward. "They are intelligent. They recognize strength. Even if it is quiet. You may not understand it, but they know when a being is not to be trifled with." Ilara laughed again, but the sound faltered when one of the predators stepped into a patch of sunlight, revealing its full size. Its fur shimmered with dark iridescence, muscles rippling beneath sleek skin. Its eyes locked on Kale, and for the first time, the princess felt a flicker of unease. "Move closer, human," she said, her voice now a mix of challenge and caution. "Show me how your strength works. If it's real, I want to see it." Kale didn't move closer. Instead, he stood perfectly still, his posture relaxed, yet firm. He breathed slowly, evenly, making no sudden movements. The predators advanced a few steps, their claws clicking against the ground. Then, astonishingly, they stopped. Not just stopped, they circled him cautiously, their massive heads tilting as if studying him. Ilara's laughter died in her throat. What is this?" she whispered. The crowd around them murmured, fear and astonishment blending into a tense hum. "Calm," Kyle said softly, almost to himself. "They sense fear. If you are calm, they hesitate." One predator stepped forward, then paused, sniffing the air. Kale's gaze never left the creature, yet he made no threatening moves. Slowly, the massive beast stepped back, giving him space. Another followed. Soon, a small circle formed around him, a protective, invisible barrier, born of instinct and recognition. Ilara's mouth fell open. The girl who had mocked him, laughed at him, and called him weak, now stared at him with a mix of disbelief and growing respect. How?" she stammered. "Humans aren't supposed to do that." Kale finally spoke to her directly. "Humans are not like other beings here. We survive by observing, understanding, and responding. Strength is not always loud, princess. Sometimes, it is quiet." Ilara blinked, struggling to process what she had just witnessed. The predators, apex hunters that had terrorized the frontier for centuries, had backed away from a single human, and that human was standing quietly, calm, unafraid. The marketplace remained tense for several minutes. Merchants and citizens whispered, pointing at Kale. Even alien nobles, who had dismissed humans for generations, could not deny what they had seen. "Apprentice," Ilara said finally, her voice lower, less mocking, though still tinged with curiosity. You survived where even trained hunters would flee. How?" Kale's eyes met hers, steady and clear. "By not pretending to be something I am not. By observing, understanding, and respecting what is around me. That is survival." The princess's pride bristled. But a small part of her was intrigued. She had always valued strength, but Kale's strength was different, intelligent, patient, and invisible to those who only measured power in weapons and claws. A sudden shout interrupted their moment. From the far side of the marketplace, a merchant pointed toward the jungle. A smaller predator, curious or reckless, had approached the edge of the city. The crowd panicked, shouts echoed. Children screamed and were pulled away by parents. Kyle moved forward, not running, not panicking, but with purpose. He held out a hand calmly. The predator paused, sniffed the air, and then slowly retreated, back into the trees. A ripple of astonishment went through the crowd. Ilara's eyes widened. You just... She stopped, realizing words would not capture what she had seen. Kale turned back to her, calm as ever. Fear invites attack. Confidence, even quiet confidence, earns respect. That is something your mocking never taught you, princess. Ilara's cheeks flushed, partly with embarrassment and partly with awe. She opened her mouth to respond, but found no words strong enough. Instead, she studied him closely, noticing the careful way he moved, the steady rhythm of his breathing, and the subtle ways he had communicated with creatures that most would die trying to control. The princess, who had walked this frontier with power and pride, suddenly felt the unfamiliar sensation of humility. She realized she had underestimated this human, dismissed him without understanding, and now had to face the truth. He was more capable than anyone had expected. As the sun dipped lower, casting the city in shades of orange and violet, Kale stood quietly at the edge of the marketplace. The predators had vanished back into the jungle, but their presence lingered like a silent acknowledgement. Even the alien nobles and soldiers could not deny the lesson of the day. Humans, though small and young, could possess strength unlike any other. Elara walked beside him in silence, her usual teasing words gone. For the first time, she looked at him not as an apprentice to mock, but as someone to observe. Someone, perhaps, to learn from. And Kale, the quiet human who had faced apex predators without fear, simply carried on, his calm presence reshaping the expectations of all who witnessed it. The mockery was over. The frontier had spoken. And it had chosen its own kind of hero. The morning mist clung to the outskirts of Zalrath like a soft silver veil. Birds flitted through the alien trees, their calls sharp in the quiet of dawn. Princess Elara and Kael walked toward the edge of the jungle, where the city's structured streets gave way to wild, untamed terrain. Elara's curiosity had replaced her mockery. She was still sharp-tongued, still proud, but something in Kael had unsettled her. He had faced apex predators with calmness she could not understand. His quiet confidence had forced even the most ferocious creatures to hesitate. Today, she wanted to see more. "Do you come here often?" she asked, her voice lighter than usual. Kael glanced at her, his expression calm. "I observe. I learn. Every day in the frontier teaches something new." Elara raised an eyebrow. "Observe, learn, survive. It sounds simple when you say it like that. But this jungle is not simple." Kael did not reply immediately. His eyes were scanning the trees, listening to the whispers of the wind, noticing shapes moving in the shadows. "Complexity is part of survival," he said finally. "Ignoring it is dangerous." The princess snorted softly. "You humans and your lessons. I prefer action over words." As if on cue, the jungle responded. A rustle came from the dense foliage, followed by the heavy footfalls of something large. Both Kael and Elara froze. From the shadows, a creature emerged, a predator larger than any Kael had faced yesterday. Its claws glinting in the dim light. Its amber eyes scanning for prey. Elara's hand instinctively went to her side, where ceremonial weapons hung. But Kael stepped forward, calm, unafraid. "Stay back," he said softly to Elara. "Watch. Learn. Do not interfere unless it becomes necessary." The predator advanced, its steps deliberate, muscles rippling under dark fur. The city's guards, who had followed at a distance, tensed. They were trained warriors. But none of them had faced this level of wild intelligence and power. Most would have attacked immediately, relying on brute strength to survive. But Kael did not reach for a weapon. Instead, he shifted his stance, slightly wider, showing stability and confidence. The predator stopped a few meters away, its head tilting as if curious. Its gaze never left Kael. Then, something remarkable happened. Slowly, carefully, it stepped back. Another predator emerged, following the first's lead. And they both circled Kael, without aggression. Elara's jaw dropped. You just... They are letting you be," she whispered. Kael looked at her briefly. "They sense fear. Humans often panic. They overreact. But calmness, understanding, it earns hesitation. That hesitation can save lives." The princess swallowed, suddenly aware of how much she had underestimated this human. Her pride flared and faltered at the same time. She had mocked him, laughed at him, and now she was seeing firsthand what she had dismissed. The predators did not attack. They simply observed, circling, testing, judging. Kael moved slowly, deliberately, maintaining balance and rhythm. Even when he reached down to pick up a fallen branch, he did so without sudden movement. The creatures watched, then withdrew further, granting him space. Ilara's eyes were wide. "It's like you are speaking to them without words." Kale nodded. "Every being communicates. Even those who cannot speak understand presence, confidence, and intention. Fear is loud. Calmness is silent, but stronger." A sudden shout broke the moment. A young apprentice, one of Kale's peers, had wandered too close to the predators. Panic sparked in the jungle as the creatures noticed movement. Without hesitation, Kale sprinted toward the apprentice. His movements were precise and controlled. He reached the human in seconds, shielding them with his body. One predator stepped forward, claws raised. But Kale remained calm. He crouched low, eyes steady on the predator, hands raised in a gesture of peace. For a long, tense moment, time seemed suspended. The predator tilted its head, studied him, then remarkably stepped back. Kale helped the apprentice to their feet and led them away. Ilara, who had followed closely, could not speak. She had expected chaos, fear, and perhaps a tragedy. Instead, she witnessed control, understanding, and the quiet authority that Kale possessed. You just saved them," she said finally, her voice trembling with disbelief. Kale nodded without pride. "They would have been fine if they had stayed calm. I merely guided them. My nodded by sea. Where guided them?" The princess's mind raced. Every lesson she had learned about survival, strength, and leadership seemed incomplete compared to what she had just seen. Kale was human, young, unassuming, but his mind and instincts were sharper than anyone she knew. They moved deeper into the jungle, where the undergrowth became thicker and the air more humid. Strange plants with glowing spores brushed their shoulders, and alien birds with iridescent feathers darted above. The city's sounds faded behind them, replaced by the whispers of the wild. Kale paused near a river, where the water ran dark and fast. He knelt, touching the surface, testing the flow, observing reflections and currents. Ilara watched curiously. "You are always observing," she said, "never acting immediately. How does that help in a real fight?" Kale stood and looked at her. "Acting without understanding is reckless. Observation gives information. Information gives advantage. Advantage gives survival." Ilara frowned but could not argue. She had seen it in action today. Kale's patience and awareness had saved lives, calmed predators, and commanded respect without a single weapon drawn. Suddenly, a rustling came from the undergrowth. Both turned, alert. A pack of medium-sized predators, smaller, but faster and more aggressive than the apex beasts, emerged. They hissed, their sharp teeth glinting in the sunlight that pierced the jungle canopy. Ilara reached for her ceremonial dagger, ready to intervene. Kale raised a hand. "Watch." The creatures advanced, expecting fear, movement, and reaction. Kale crouched slightly, placing himself low but grounded. His eyes scanned the pack. Then he extended a slow hand toward the largest of them. The predator froze, head tilting. Kale's gaze never wavered, his breathing even and steady. The other predators paused, following the lead of the largest. One by one, they stepped back. Their aggression melted into curiosity. The pack circled Kale, sniffing, observing, but not attacking. Ilara's voice broke the quiet. "It's impossible. How are you doing this?" Kale's expression remained calm. "I respect them. I do not threaten them. I understand what they need to feel safe. Predators are not mindless killers. They are intelligent. Treat them as such, and they respond." For the first time, Ilara felt humility. The girl who had mocked him now saw the power of quiet confidence. of understanding over brute force. She realized that Kael's strength was not measured by muscles or weapons, but by his mind and instincts. Hours passed as they navigated the jungle. Kael demonstrated human ingenuity in small ways, using fallen branches to create barriers, observing predator patterns to choose safe paths, and subtly signaling to creatures without fear or aggression. Every action impressed Elara more. By mid-afternoon, they reached a clearing where the jungle met a cliff edge. From this vantage, the city shimmered below. A world of structure and order contrasted with the chaotic intelligence of the wild they had just traversed. Kyle turned to Elara. The frontier is not a place for fear. It is a place for learning, for observation, and for understanding strength in its many forms. Elara nodded slowly. I have underestimated you, she admitted. I thought you were weak, unprepared. I mocked you without knowing you. Kael gave a small smile. Strength is not always what it seems, Princess. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it is patience. And sometimes it is the courage to remain calm when everything around you is chaos. The princess looked at him, a new respect forming. Her teasing smile had vanished, replaced by curiosity and admiration. I think I have much to learn from you, human. Kael simply nodded. The jungle around them seemed to settle in acknowledgement. Even distant predators appeared to watch from afar, their movements cautious but respectful. Humans, though young and small, could command presence in ways that even apex hunters recognized. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet, they began their walk back to the city. The princess walked beside Kael, silent at first, then gradually asking questions about the predators, the jungle, and the methods he used to survive. Kael answered with patience, teaching without arrogance, showing her a perspective she had never known. By the time they returned to the safety of the city gates, Elara had changed. The princess who mocked the apprentice now walked beside him as a student of his knowledge. She realized that humans, though often underestimated, carried a unique power: the ability to survive through observation, intelligence, and calm confidence. The city gates closed behind them, but the lessons of the day remained. Apex predators had backed away from Kael, not out of fear, but out of recognition. The frontier had tested him, and he had passed. Elara looked at him one last time before they parted ways for the evening. Tomorrow, she said softly, we continue. I want to see more. Kael nodded, as calm as ever. Tomorrow, we learn more. But remember, princess strength is quiet. Patience is power. Observation is survival. And with that, the apprentice led the way, the princess following, and the city around them slowly realizing that something remarkable had begun. A human who could command respect, not through force, but through understanding, intelligence, and courage. The mockery had ended, but the real test, the test of survival, understanding, and mastery of the frontier, was only beginning. The first rays of dawn spilled over Xalrath, gilding the spires of the city and the wild jungle beyond. Princess Elara rose early, her mind replaying yesterday's events again and again. Kael had faced predators, protected his peers, and moved with a quiet confidence that even she could not match. Her mockery was gone, replaced with curiosity, and slowly, respect. Today, she told herself as she dressed in light, practical garments, I will see what humans are truly capable of. Kael was already waiting outside the palace gates, standing calmly as the guards watched with wary curiosity. Even in the early morning, predators' presence could be sensed in the jungle's edge, not threats, but silent observers. Measuring, acknowledging. The young human did not flinch, did not move hastily, yet something about him commanded attention. Ready? Elara asked, falling into step beside him. Kael nodded. We begin. Their destination was a remote plateau, farther into the frontier than they had ever gone. Today was not about mere survival. Today, Kale would show the full depth of human ingenuity and the quiet strength that had already unsettled the apex predators. The journey began with careful observation. Kale led, but not with force he taught as he went. Every movement, every glance, every subtle shift in posture or expression was a lesson in presence. Elara watched him, absorbing his methods. The way he noticed the faintest rustle of grass, the way he calculated paths through thorny undergrowth, the way he read creatures' body language like a story written in instinct. Mid-morning brought their first true challenge. A river, swollen with recent rains, roared between them and the plateau. The water was fast, the banks slippery, and the current strong enough to sweep even a skilled swimmer away. Princess Elara approached cautiously, expecting fear or hesitation. Kale, however, moved forward with calm assessment. "Observe the rocks," he said. "Notice which are stable, which are loose. Listen to the current. Plan your steps before you act." Elara followed his instructions, stepping where he indicated. Several rocks shifted beneath her, and she realized she had been rushing, trying to move quickly. Kale, however, had already crossed, his steps confident and precise. "You humans are clever," she said breathlessly. "Even in water. Most aliens would panic." Kale glanced back, a small smile playing at the corner of his lips. "Panic is the enemy of survival. Careful observation, steady movement, and timing are more powerful than fear or speed." On the far side, they rested briefly. Elara began asking questions about the predators they had encountered, about Kale's instincts, and about his methods of reading the wild. Kale answered patiently, explaining not only what to do, but why it worked. His intelligence was methodical, precise, yet adaptable, a blend of knowledge, instinct, and calm judgment. As they approached the plateau, a distant rumble shook the ground. The sound was low, resonant, and unmistakable. A pack of apex predators moving toward them. Larger and more coordinated than anything Kale had faced before, these creatures could crush or tear apart anything in their path. Elara's hand went to her dagger. "They are coming for us," she said, voice tense. Kale did not panic. "They are testing us. Observe. Respond. Do not act without understanding." The predators emerged from the jungle, eyes fixed on Kale. The princess expected chaos, expected him to dodge, run, or fight. Instead, he stopped and lowered his body slightly, standing firm but non-threatening. He spoke softly, words incomprehensible to her, but filled with authority. The predators halted mid-step, their muscles tensed, claws scraping the ground, but they did not advance. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, they began to circle him. Kale remained calm, moving subtly to create space without showing fear. The creatures recognized something in him, something beyond human fragility, a presence they could not ignore. Elara's voice trembled. I can't believe this. They are listening to you." "They are intelligent," Kale said. "Fear will make them attack. Confidence, even quiet confidence, earns respect." The princess watched in awe as the pack slowly spread out, circling, observing, not attacking. One massive predator, larger than any Kale had faced before, stepped forward, stopped, and then slowly stepped back. Another followed. In minutes, the entire pack acknowledged Kale's presence without aggression. Elara realized the full magnitude of what she was seeing. Humans, though small and young, had a unique strength, intelligence, calmness, and the ability to communicate presence without weapons or force. Kale was living proof. The rest of the day was a lesson in survival and ingenuity. Kale demonstrated clever ways to navigate the plateau, creating barriers from fallen branches, using reflective water surfaces to distract smaller predators, and reading predator patterns to choose safe paths. Ilara followed him closely, learning, questioning, and slowly understanding. At one point, a sudden storm swept across the plateau. Rain fell in sheets, thunder rolled through the sky, and lightning lit the clouds. The terrain became treacherous, mud and water threatening to sweep them away. Ilara's instincts screamed for shelter, for safety, for control. Kale's instincts told him observation first, then calculated action. He guided her to a sheltered crevice, teaching her how to use natural formations to stay safe while remaining mobile. Even in the storm, predators approached but maintained a cautious distance, as if acknowledging Kale's authority. By evening, they reached the highest point of the plateau. The view was breathtaking. The city sparkled far below. The jungle stretched endlessly, and the frontier beyond seemed alive with possibility. Kale stood at the edge, apex predators maintaining their distance, a silent circle of recognition surrounding him. Ilara approached, her usual pride tempered with genuine respect. Kale, I understand now. Your strength is not in fighting, not in weapons, not in sheer power. It is in understanding, in calm, in observation. You are extraordinary. Kyle looked at her, calm as ever. Strength takes many forms, princess. Not all are loud. Not all are violent. The quiet mind can command what the strong hand cannot. The princess nodded slowly. She realized that her mockery had been premature, that her judgments had been shallow. Humans, though underestimated, possessed qualities that even the most skilled alien warriors lacked. She felt a strange sense of humility, but also curiosity and admiration. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold, Kale turned to face her. Tomorrow, we return to the city. You will see that respect is earned, not by titles, but by action, understanding, and presence. Humans may be young, but we are capable of more than most believe. Ilara's lips curved into a small, sincere smile. I will follow your lead. Today, you taught me more than I thought possible. Tomorrow, the city will see what I have learned. They descended the plateau together, apex predators still observing from a distance. By the time they returned to Xal'Rath, news had already spread. The city's nobles, who had dismissed humans as fragile apprentices, now whispered in awe about Kale's accomplishments. The frontiersmen, hunters who had survived decades, spoke of the human who commanded apex predators without weapons. In the palace, an assembly was called. The council of elders and nobles gathered, expecting to see a frightened human or perhaps a minor incident blown out of proportion. Instead, they witnessed Kale step forward calmly, his demeanor steady, his presence commanding attention. Princess Ilara stood beside him, no longer mocking, only observing with respect. This is the human I spoke of, she said to the assembly, the one who faced the frontier and its predators, and did so with courage, intelligence, and calm. He is no apprentice. He is a master of understanding, and today, he proves the strength of humans. The council murmured, skeptical at first. Then awed, as KL described his methods, how humans observe, how humans understand, and how humans survive through intelligence and calm confidence. He demonstrated not with weapons or force, but with reasoned explanations and examples of yesterday's encounters. By the end of the assembly, even the most skeptical nobles recognized the truth. Humans, though small, young, and underestimated, possessed a unique strength. Kale had earned respect not through brute force, but through intellect, calm presence, and courage in the face of danger. Ilara approached Kyle privately as the crowd dispersed. You have changed everything, she said softly. Not just how they see you, but how I see humans, and myself. Kale's expression remained calm, almost gentle. Strength is not about showing off, princess. It is about understanding, observing, and acting wisely. That lesson applies to humans and to leaders alike. The princess nodded. Tomorrow, I want to learn more. Not as your superior, but as someone willing to understand. Kale smiled faintly. Then, we begin again. Humans, though underestimated, have much to offer, and the frontier always teaches more than the city ever can. As night fell over Xalrath, the stars twinkling above the jungle and city, Kale stood quietly at the palace balcony. Below him, the apex predators lingered near the jungle edge, their presence a silent acknowledgement of his quiet authority. The frontier had tested him, the predators had respected him, and the princess, once mocking, now humbled, had learned a lesson in human potential. The story of Kale, the quiet human who commanded respect without weapons, was only beginning.